Now, this may be a presentation some of you have seen before. I used to have two separate presentations. I've kind of combined them into one because as time goes by, this technology is both available in our homes and in cars. So I thought, let me put it into one. And again, this is a technology that I'm updating almost all the time. So this will not be exactly what you may have seen before. So background information really quick, if my accent hasn't given me away, born and raised in New York City and really started my record buying at the age of 11. I was involved with an organization in California when I lived there for 20 plus years called the Doo-Wop Society. And we actually would put on live quarterly stage shows. So I got the chance to meet a lot of my idols in music in person. And then I helped, I didn't really help start it, but I joined a group in Arizona here. We call ourselves RCA. Nothing to do with the record label. It stands for Record Collectors of Arizona. And these are guys who, and one young lady who actually still play records and CDs. And we get together now on Zoom since COVID hit, and we watch music-related videos while discussing the early days of rock and roll on a weekly basis. With that, I started a local music listening club here in the area where I live. There's about 8 or 9 of us. We meet monthly at somebody's home, rotated, and we watch YouTube videos and give a little information and background of what we're watching. And this is really a great outlet for me. And if anybody of you listening there think it might work in your neighborhood, contact me directly and I'll help you start it up. From a technology point of view, yes, I'm involved with APCUG. I have a small little computer club that I've been running for many, many years in Payson, Arizona. And then I used to teach computer classes at Eastern Arizona College. I'm not going to even talk about this slide because you guys know more about it probably than I do with Yui being part of it. But I always want to promote the Tech for Senior show on Monday morning. All right, how technology has changed the way we listen to music. So I'm going to show you a little bit about where I go to hide every once in a while in my man cave and what it consists of. Well, hello there, folks. Since this presentation is titled How Technology Has Changed the Way We Listen to Music over the years, over about the last 70 years, I thought I'd show you that I actually have some of the different devices we used in that time frame. So we can start with the 78 RPM record, and here's my collection that I probably started collecting in 1956 and 57. Of course, I made a spreadsheet so I can know where the different records are. We then moved on to 45 RPM records, and I keep them there. And then, of course, the long play album over here is what most of us, probably many of you may still have. And then we moved into CDs, and the amount of CDs that we have here, this is my collection, and then my wife has her own collection over here. And then now we're into MP3s. I have many of them on my computer, which I'll show you in a little bit. And then some of the equipment we used over the years would include, of course, the turntable. This is a unique turntable, in fact, that I can put a disc on here, and I may demonstrate that. Press a number, and then it'll automatically go and count the number of spaces between the tracks. And then if I press number 4, it would drop down automatically on the 4th track without me having to search for it. Before we started making copies of CDs on the computer, we actually had devices like this where you could put the original in here and a blank over here, close them up, and then this would automatically make, let's give that a little help, would automatically make a copy of the disc. The old VHS player, this is one that'll actually convert it to a DVD. And then I talked a little bit about the computer. All right, let's start where it all began. Well before 1948, the phonograph. That goes back to 1877 when Thomas Edison invented it, and that ultimately led to the 78 RPM record, which really during the first half of the 20th century allowed consumers to choose what music they wanted to listen to at home. Now, from the beginning, it was a format with a need for improvement. 78 RPM records were made of shellac, not vinyl that we're all used to, but shellac, so they could easily chip or shatter. And the weight of the tone arms on these early players, the recording grooves, and thus the sound quality would deteriorate after many plays. Some consumers, would you believe this? Some consumers would add to this problem by taping a coin to the tone arm to help reduce skipping. That sound familiar to anybody? All right, let's not forget about the radio. Record players were expensive, and there were many people who could not afford them. But before 1948, most households had a radio, and after the initial cost, the music was free. Before the 1960s in a segregated America, phonograph records broadcast over the radio were available for all to hear. It only depended where on the tuning dial the listener chose to stop. So in a small way, radio helped equalize the social classes. Both the poor and rich could hear the great vocalists. White listeners could hear Black music without fear of violating any of the current social day norms. And in the mid-1950s, particularly in large urban cities, there were many a young white teenager with a transistor radio tucked under the pillow in the wee hours, listening to the transition of Black R&B into early rock and roll. Just ask me. Now, records become vinyl. And we talk about format wars that we've been used to today. Well, format wars have been going on for a long time. So developed and introduced by Columbia Broadcasting System, CBS, in 1948, they came out with the LP, the long play album, as a method to improve upon the decades-old 78 RPM format. Now, at the time, Columbia's arch rival was RCA Victor, who was the largest record label for distributing 78 RPM records. So this is a direct threat to RCA. Now, some of the benefits, obvious ones, greater sound quality, they weighed less, far less breakable, and by playing it at the slower speed, the 33 1/3, a 12-inch disc could have as much as 22 minutes of music per side. Now, the first LP records were 10 inches in diameter, same as a 78 RPM record. My guess is Columbia thought it best to keep the same size disc that the general public was already used to. But within a few years, the LP size was increased to the 12 inches that we know today for the main purpose of accommodating more tracks. And over the years, there were other sizes used, but none ever caught on. That brings us to the little disc with the big hole in the middle, the 45 RPM record. So this one, RCA Victor needed to compete from a sound quality perspective. So the following year, 1949, they introduced their new format. And they had an advantage in that they also made the record players. So they would sell the record players at cost to entice new buyers. Well, what are the benefits of the 45 over the LP? With about 3 minutes of playing time on each side, perfect length for the pop as well as what we used to call hillbilly songs of the day. And the discs were also ideal to replace 78s in the nation's jukeboxes, which were very popular at the time. How many of you still have your 45s? This is about a third of my collection. This is all I have room to put out right now. How many can relate to this? When I was a kid, this is how we made a playlist. Put them together, put them on the changer, and let them go. Now, 8-track tapes then arrived. Have music, will travel. Unintended results. This 8-track tape, believe it or not, was invented by Bill Lear about 1965 for his line of his private jets, the Lear jets. And he must have said to himself, you know what? These units could be ideal and work for consumers to play music in their cars. So the players were initially manufactured by a Ford Motor Company affiliate, thus making the name Motor Victrola into Motorola Corporation. Now I'm going to show briefly the what the old 8-track looked like and playing it in the car, but I'm not going to have any sound because there's some music being played, and I don't want to have any you folks to have any problem with copyright issues. So there's a person in his car using the dial to see what stations we're on, changing it from AM to FM, moving it up and down. Yeah, no push buttons. I'm sorry, he does have push buttons, but no electronic tuning here, that's for sure. And he plays a little bit more, and then at this point, he's going to look and find an 8-track, and look at the size of them. I mean, we're so used to tiny things these days. Look at the size of that, but that's what we used to have in our cars, and we thought it was great. And there's a Peter, Paul, and Mary 8-track player, and 8-track tape rather, and he's putting it in the player and going through the different songs there. So that's what 8-tracks used to be like in the car. That brings us to the cassette, the compact cassette. Really had humble beginnings. Goes back to 1963, but initially only used for dictation purposes because the sound quality was so poor. But by the early 70s, Dolby B tape noise reduction came into play, and that gave them what many people thought was the ability to record hi-fi, and it made the compact cassette a serious format for recording music. And it had staying power. Home recording decks then allowed consumers the ability to create their own mixed tape. And this continued with improvements in tape quality, different levels of the noise reduction. That kept the cassette a popular format actually into the 21st century. This prompted the Sony Walkman. Who remembers the Sony Walkman? 1979, where they sold over 200 million units. They were considered a small size in their day, so it made them conducive for people who wanted to do outside activities. I once saw somebody jogging in the park with one of these taped to their arm. So Sony's lead helped the cassette tape outsell vinyl records for the very first time back in 1983. And the popularity of the Walkman was at its highest from 1987 to 1997. But then when the compact disc came around, the cassette format began to fade. But the Walkman name stayed relevant for many years. It was an MP3 player, and a phone, I believe, and a portable DVD player. So music portability before the iPod was the Sony Walkman. I want to just mention something about what to do with old cassette tapes. Now, if you have a mixtape, one that you put music on 30 or 40 years ago, toss it out. I mean, it's not going to be worth playing anymore. But the problem with tapes is they're analog, and therefore they wear out. And the longer you keep them in a drawer, the longer they're beginning to deteriorate. And let's say you have one that's one of a kind, where it was a tape, say, of someone speaking who has since passed away, that they're irreplaceable. You want to save those. Here's how I've done that. So the upper photo looks like what appears to be a standard cassette player. If you look at the right-hand side in the upper, there you'll see the play, fast forward, stop buttons. But when I turn this cassette player over, you can see it reads cassette to MP3 converter. And as you have a tape in the cassette player playing and a flash drive plugged in, it'll automatically record what's on that tape to your flash drive as an MP3 file. So, and it's a smaller version on the left, on the bottom, and a slightly larger version on the right-hand side, more like a boombox. That particular model can do not only a flash drive, but also an SD card. So this is the way you save those priceless cassette tapes. Then we had the compact disc in the 1970s. This was developed by Sony and Philips working together, and they called it then, and it's still called today, optical disc technology. Now, as I recall, the first commercial CDs for music were expensive and consisted of mostly classical music. But by 1982, Billy Joel's 52nd Street became the first pop album, and by 1985, Dire Straits was the first artist to sell 1 million CDs. Philips and Sony continued to work together. They created the CDR, the recordable disc, by 1990. So in 2008, sales for large label CDs dropped 20% because now there was a popularity of music downloads. So while still a popular format, CD sales have continued to decline each year since, except for last year, and I'll explain about that in a second. Now, I don't know how many, it's getting harder to do now with the missing CD optical drives from most newer computers, but I might ask this question at the end of the presentation, those in the audience, how many of them have not ripped or copied your CD collection to computer? Because I'd be interested in the reason why. Because the main reason you'd want to do that is to back it up. And then this also organizes your collection. You don't have to worry about if a disc gets lost and damaged because you have the copy already made. So that is something I've done. I used to also make one disc and I use it as a data disc instead of an audio disc. And as a data disc, it's measuring the 700 megabytes it could hold, and you can fit hundreds, literally hundreds of songs on one CD disc. That's how I used to play them in the car years ago. Now, here's something that most people are surprised to learn. How does a computer know what songs are on a CD? Let's think about it. Music CDs were first introduced to the public long before the personal computer became standard in the home. So for all these older CDs in circulation, the data for the song title and the artist, they are not stored on the actual disc. So here's what happens. You insert a CD in a computer, and the metadata is automatically retrieved within seconds from an online database. And it compares just two things. It compares the number of tracks and the individual times of each track. So the chances of two different CDs having the same number of tracks and each track being exactly the same length of time are pretty remote. I guess it could happen though. Anyway, there's several online music databases that have been used, Gracenote being the most popular. Now, more recent music CDs do have the artist and track information encoded into the CD. So this data can be read by CD players used in cars and some in the home, but computers cannot read the CD text. So this is why sometimes you'll put an older CD in the car and it just says track 1, track 2, but you'll put a newer CD in your car and all of a sudden there's the name of the artist and the name of the song. It does take a while to rip your CDs. And I won't tell you how long it took me to get all these done. But if you do them, as I did, every time I got a new one, it wasn't a long process at all. Okay, the iPod leads the way to the popularity of portable music players. The iPod line led to a portable music player explosion. First released by Apple in 2001, then Apple iTunes and other similar software provided the ability to transfer songs, not only songs, but photos, videos, and other data to this and other portable devices. And with the advent of compressing music files, this allowed consumers to create large music libraries without using up enormous amounts of what at the time was precious storage capacity. But Apple discontinued making the iPod in May of 2022. That's right. They were only earlier this year did they finally stop making it. So the MP3 audio, making your entire music collection portable. MP3 is an audio compression subset of the Moving Pictures Expert Group of Family Standards. In other words, this is what's used in the motion picture industry. And basically, it's a process to compress to roughly 10% the size of the original audio recording, supposedly without noticeable loss of sound. So as an example, if you had a song on a CD that was 50 megabytes in size, once that's converted to an MP3, it's only about 5 megabytes in size. Now, many audiophiles disregard the MP3 and instead opt for what's called lossless recordings. They want the full fidelity, such as what is commonly found on a commercial CD. But the impact of the MP3 was enormous. Portable MP3 players now can hold thousands of songs, were very popular until the advent of this feature in smartphones themselves. And then, as I said before, the data music disc created at home could contain hundreds of songs. And then as we moved on, many more modern car stereos had a USB connector, allowing flash drives containing thousands of MP3 songs to be played while driving. Digital downloads were popular for a while. They're the ones that really replaced CDs initially. And if you go back in 2011, both Nielsen and Billboard at that point said that digital music purchases then accounted for more than 50% of music sales. And for several years, digital sales increased each year, while physical CD albums continued to decline. The iTunes Store, Amazon Music, and others flourished, replacing music purchases from the brick and mortar locations we used to call record stores. And the benefits, digital downloads were more economical because you paid only for the songs you wanted. And typically you can listen to a 30-second clip of a song before deciding if you wanted to make that purchase. This was a wonderful way for new artists to showcase their work without the need for a full album. And providers such as Amazon allowed the purchase of a CD with immediate availability of the songs in your account as MP3 files. Now, what are the best streaming music services that are around today? Well, the CNET every year publishes an article, and yes, there's one out that's titled Best Music Streaming Services for 2022. Just go to the CNET website and type that in there, search box, and it'll bring it up. And the ones that are really at the top of the list are Apple Music. That's best for those committed to the Apple ecosystem. Now, iTunes has been retired and has been replaced by the new Apple Music, along with sister apps for TV and podcast. We have YouTube Music, and that's replaced the retired Google Play and is geared to those who also enjoy watching the music videos. Spotify, which is headquartered in Sweden, they are the largest music streaming service in the world. They have different kinds of plans, including a $15 per month plan for a family of up to 6 users. Pandora is noted for their free service, where you input a favorite artist and you'll hear songs by that specific artist, as well as similar ones. Then there's a company called Tidal. They're high-end audio version. So they charge about twice as much, $20 monthly. And they have I'm sure by now it's more than the $60 million song catalog and many, many videos. Now, here's something that just happened a couple of weeks ago. Amazon Prime Music this month made a change to their streaming service. So they used to have 2 streaming services, Amazon Prime and then Amazon Music Unlimited. Amazon Prime came with your Prime membership. So that was a nice benefit. And they only I say with in quotation marks, only had a catalog of about 2 million songs, but you were able to hear the song and artist you requested. And that I thought was really good. That I used to highly recommend to folks. If you wanted to start a streaming service and you already had Prime, use that one for a while to see if that met your needs. Here's what they've done. The new benefit now offers their full catalog, 100 million songs. I didn't know there were that many. That is offered by their paid service called Amazon Music Unlimited. But they're providing the music what's called a shuffle. So where instead of playing the specific song and artist you requested, Amazon will shuffle songs and artists they feel are similar, which means there's a good chance they won't be playing the actual tune you asked for. Now, I feel this move by Amazon is to encourage, and I'm being kind here, encourage listeners to opt for the Amazon Music Unlimited service that requires that additional monthly fee, in addition to the Amazon Prime membership expense. The move by Amazon reinforces my recommendation that if you're a music collector, you should rip your music collection so the songs you want to hear are computer files saved on portable devices, allowing you to hear what you want and when you want, and saving some money in the process. So what are the pros and cons of a music streaming service? Well, the advantages are you can listen to who else recorded a favorite song. You can listen to other songs a favorite artist recorded. And it introduces new artists that otherwise you might never hear. Tens of millions, now it's 100 million songs of recorded music. Disadvantages, the free services have limitations. And typically you're going to need an internet connection, although some services now give you the ability to download playlists to the app for offline listening, but songs cannot be copied to the device. And let's face it, when you're not using Wi-Fi at home, then this is using your monthly data allotment. But millennials love music streaming. The younger music lovers have moved away from purchasing and collecting music media, meaning CD and digital downloads. They prefer renting their music from these online services, which provide a form of personalized internet radio. And they create their own playlist so they can sort the music by genre, tempo, artist, any number of ways, and have so much more available to listen to. Major benefits include no need to worry about storage issues, damaging a disk, theft. There are disadvantages, and the biggest one is when changing a provider, it is really time consuming for the individual to have to now go and recreate all their playlists and other favorites. Now, here's a question I'm asked often. How do singers, composers, and others get paid from streaming? Well, the music streaming services, Apple, Spotify, Pandora, they receive income from two main sources. If you use their free accounts, then you're going to see a lot of ads, and those advertisers pay the streaming service to interrupt the music you're listening to with these ads. Or they get the money from a subscription account where the user pays the streaming service a monthly fee so they can choose the music they want to hear without interruption. Now, what the music streaming service pays the artists and others entitled to royalties, that's a complicated and based on a variety of factors, and it differs from service to service. But for example, this is a couple of years ago, Spotify pays every artist 0.0032 cents per stream. Another way of saying that is 1 cent for every 3 plays. So the next slide is going to show the top charting songs on Spotify, the artists behind them, and the amount they earned from streaming as of March 2020. So as you look down the list, if you, it's really, here's what I found the most interesting. Justin Bieber, right on the top of the list. Just the song Yummy, which I don't think I've ever heard, $835,000. If you go down the list a few more lines, there he is again with another song. If you go midway, he's on this same list a third time. So, and you add up those amounts, I think it's over $1 million. So if you're really, really popular, you can make a good living. If you're not so popular or just moderate, it's not probably going to be as much money as they were making at the time when it was based on chart sales. This is why today more and more artists are putting out less new releases and are doing more live shows. And if you're taking a look at the cost of getting into a live show lately, even in the nosebleed section, very, very expensive. So the question comes down to stream or not to stream. I think you should consider streaming if you don't have a large collection of music, but you'd still like to have access to all your favorite artists and that you enjoy discovering new artists and their music of today. Maybe you're considering downsizing, moving perhaps, and no longer want to store and maintain a collection of vinyl or CDs. And you're the person that you listen to music every day and want to have it readily available using today's technology. Yes, you should consider streaming. However, you don't need to stream if you don't have an interest in today's new artists or the various pop offerings, music offerings. Maybe listening to music is not an important aspect of your daily life. And maybe you're like me and you've been collecting music for decades and already own all the music you ever want to hear. You know, that being the case, again, take the time to rip the music. Now, YouTube music videos have become extremely popular. I actually pay for this service. It runs about $12 a month. I get no commercials, and it's well worth that. So, but in the early days of rock and roll, the national TV programs like American Bandstand, maybe the weekly variety shows like Ed Sullivan, they were how we watched our favorite music icons. And then there were some theatrical movies that were made specifically to showcase the rock and roll stars of the day. All of these have somehow been saved. I thought they were lost decades ago, but these clips in so many cases have been saved over the decades and uploaded to YouTube. And most people do watch the free service with ads, but you'll see either current day concert footage from professionals sometimes. Sometimes it's just somebody in the audience with their smartphone and they've uploaded what they've taken at the concert. Now be careful about YouTube. There's one negative here. The site can be habit forming. More than once I've told my wife I'll be coming to bed in a little while, and the next thing I know, the sun is rising. That's true. Okay, music apps to download to your smartphone. Ever hear a song playing but can't recall the name of the artist? Well, there's SoundHound and Shazam. Shazam was recently acquired by Apple. These are two apps that you can download for free on your smartphone. And when you hear a song playing, maybe it's on the TV during a commercial or something, or you're out walking and it's coming from a store, you just put your phone up to that so it can hear the music, and they'll come back and give you the song title, the artist name. Sometimes you might even see lyrics or a click to get to a video if available, and top songs from this artist and more. And if you want a music player for your Android smartphone, now that Google Music Play is retired, I use a program called Music.ly. It's my music player for the songs saved on my phones. It gives me the ability to search by voice. It's free, no ads, no need for internet access, and it has some other nice features too. Excuse me. All right, you can have your cake and eat it too at home. Today's modern phonographs connect to standard, I shouldn't say phonographs, you know what, that is a phonograph, but the right name really is a turntable. Connect to standard RCA inputs, the old red and white. So you don't need the higher amplification phono connection that was used on older receivers. You can purchase a turntable like this one with a USB cable that allow you to connect it to your computer and record the songs in real time as MP3 files. And some new record albums contain a one-time code that allows you to download all the songs on the album, so you don't even have to go through this process. So according to Rolling Stone magazine, the sale of vinyl records in 2020 generated more annual income than compact discs for the first time since 1986. CD sales had been declining 3 times as fast as vinyl sales. But in 2021, CD sales increased only a tiny amount, 1.1% from the 2020 volume, with experts attributing this mostly to Adele's top-selling CD titled 30. Hey, a reality check reminds us streaming remains the most popular way that folks consume music these days, accounting for over 80% of industry revenues. So are LPs taking us back to the future? Something old, but look, this is what the newer LPs look like. No longer just black. Now they have much more colorful labels and the insert label. So I don't buy a lot of vinyl because they're quite a bit more expensive. A CD that might cost $12, a vinyl record might cost twice that much. But for special ones, I do. All right, so that's mostly listening to music in your home. Now we're going to move into listening to music in your car. Let's think about how far we've come from the AM radio. Yes, folks, most of the ones watching today, FM was not always around. FM dial frequency modulation added to the amplitude modulation dial only came around in the early 60s, and maybe by the mid 60s was started to be available in cars. And music in the car certainly has evolved. The AM radio, then we got one with station push buttons, FM, 8-track player, cassette player, CD, and then multiple discs, satellite reception, the wired connection, so you could connect your wired device to the speakers in the car, a flash drive connection, and now today, Bluetooth connectivity. So lots and lots of changes over the decades. And today, the options for music in the car are numerous, and they really can be confusing. Choices would include still have the AM radio, but sometimes it's now what's called AM stereo, FM radio, and that may include what's called HD FM, and that offers up to 3 additional channels on the same frequency. Sirius XM satellite radio, hundreds of channels. The CD player, although as we're going to talk, they're starting to disappear from new cars. You have USB connectors where you can plug in a flash drive. And then smartphones, which you can connect via Bluetooth to stream and to play the streaming and perhaps songs saved on the device. Hey, it's like deja vu all over again. How many of you know who said that? Yes. The above quote is, of course, from famed New York Yankee catcher Yogi Berra. And again, most of you can recall when the following disappeared from cars: 8-track players, cassette, now CD players. My newer 2018 model vehicle doesn't even have the simple audio cord input connection anymore. So why don't new cars have CD players? Time for a new technology to take over. Hard to believe, but car CD players have been around for more than 30 years. And of course, we know it requires the user to have the physical presence of the media, compact disc, and usually the jewel case, not necessary with newer technology. And then, as we've talked before, music CDs sales have been declining since 2004, although, as I mentioned, 2021 saw an uptick because the younger listeners opt for newer methods to hear their favorite artists and tunes. So the auto manufacturers are going along with this, providing newer technologies so they can eliminate the expense of a CD player, which today has limited appeal. So now we have to decide how we want to proceed. Option 1 is to convert, rip, as I've talked before, the songs from your existing collection to MP3 files saved on your computer, and then they can be copied to devices to play the music in your car. And maybe you don't want to go through that trouble. Then option 2 is to choose a streaming service and play the music in your car from your smartphone via Bluetooth or a wired connection. There's option 3, and be like me, and I actually use both. So option 1, convert the existing music to MP3. As I mentioned earlier, this is the process over the decades I would perform as soon as I purchased a new CD for all the obvious backup benefits. Several CD ripping programs available still out there to download for Windows computers. Now, despite its age, an acceptable choice continues to be Windows Media Play for its simplicity and ease of use, and it comes preloaded with Windows 10. But on the negative side, Windows Media Player has not been updated in years and really, in some cases, has lost some of its functionality. So Windows 10 provided 2 music players. The long-running Windows Media Player allowed you to play and organize music files as well as rip your music CDs to your computer, while it obtained the artist, song titles, etc. from online database. And then it had the Groove Music Player, still does, which was briefly a streaming service, but a more modern app for playing various computer files, did not have any support for compact discs or video files. So now there is a new media player for Windows 11. This new player, new music player, it replaces both Windows Media Player and Groove, because this new one will now play video and audio files, but no longer CDs, because that's really now the old technology. I'm sure much research and discussion must have gone into deciding on a name for this new app that's now replacing the previous apps. So I cannot do a drum roll, but if I could, you'd be hearing a drum roll now. And the new name of this new app, it's called Media Player. I can't believe that's the name that they could come up with. So on my Windows 11 computer, I inserted a music CD, and automatically the old Windows Media Player opened with a new name. It's now called Windows Media Player Legacy, but it's the same version from 2013. So there are other CD ripping choices. Apple fans and those including those still that are using Windows, Apple fans can still download iTunes despite its official retirement. But for those wanting a more modern program for ripping CDs, my recommendation is to download the free MusicBee program to your computer. So at getmusicbee.com. That's the one I use now. And another good choice is VLC, which has many ripping tutorial videos available on YouTube. Now, if you want to try ripping CDs to your computer, you need an optical drive. And newer laptops, of course, and some even newer desktops don't have the optical drive anymore. So you have to get an external unit that plugs into a USB connection, and they are readily available. The units for CDs and regular DVDs are reasonably priced. Blu-rays are a little bit more expensive. There's no need for me to go into this, as many YouTube videos provide the visual instructions and narration to help you understand this process. Just type the words "rip CD" to computer, and you'll see many of them. So at this point, I'm going to assume the songs from the CD have been ripped to your computer and then copied to a flash drive that you will now want to play in your car that has a built-in USB connector. So now we're going to see some videos towards the end of this presentation. So this is music in the car using a flash drive. Okay, we're back in the car, and now we're going to take the flash drive that I brought with me and put it into the USB connector slot. I have two in this car. Doesn't really matter which one I use. I put it in one of them, and then I close the console. Now my audio is off, so I'm going to turn my audio on. And I'm going to go to the home key and then audio. And it's already started playing. So I got the volume control here. Now it's not picked out the correct album art, which makes sense. And for some reason, John Carpino's name is coming out ARPIN. I don't know. That's not important now. The purpose is to show you how this works. So as I said, I can use the controls here on the screen to either advance to the next song or go backwards. Now it's showing a total of 37 songs because I've actually downloaded on this flash drive the 3 CDs that I own. I'm going to now also show you how we can make these changes on the steering wheel. Here is, I can go to the next track just by using the controls on the steering wheel. I'll go back, and the same thing works for volume. And one of the nicest features is when you can actually choose a song based on the verbally asking for it. Play track, "I Can't Get Arrested in This Town." And all by itself, just like that, up comes that song and starts to play. So think about as you're driving and you don't want to have to be touching the screen or anything. You can just speak what you want and the system will respond. And then if you're driving with a passenger who wants to see what other songs might be available, the passenger can tap the browse button, and then here list all the songs we have in alphabetical order. And so when you get to one you liked, the passenger can do, okay, let me hear this song. So lots of nice features by using a flash drive in the car. All right, now we know how to use a flash drive for those cars equipped with USB connector. And this isn't something new. I had a 2008 vehicle I traded in a few years ago that had one. I really think the ability to verbally request songs or the artist is the best feature, as this allows hands-free usage, thus improving safe driving. And let's face it, it's easier to carry one flash drive than several CD discs and jewel cases. Now, playing songs from a smartphone. Smartphones with songs saved on additional storage option. So many Android smartphones allow for a micro SD card to be added that can hold music files. Let's assume your phone can accommodate a 1 terabyte micro SD card. I'm going to assume an average song is about 5 megabytes in size as an MP3 file. So a 1 terabyte micro SD card could fit approximately 200,000 of your very favorite songs. That would be 17,000 hours of music, or just under 2 years of playing time day and night. Now, when you do this, it's best to copy the songs to the micro SD card while it is directly connected to your computer via an adapter, since using a cable with a smartphone is a much slower process. Now, iPhones do not allow the use of micro SD cards for additional storage. So in that case, the music would have to be saved on the internal storage, thus taking up space that may be needed for other apps and system programs. So in this situation, for those committed to the Apple ecosystem, that recently discontinued iPod Touch may still be available to purchase and continues as an excellent choice to use as a music playing device. If you can't find the iPod Touch, then just regular old MP3 players are still popular. They were popular before, and they're still available to purchase. Now we have to get the sound to the car's speakers. So the Bluetooth systems allow you to pair your smartphone with the car stereo's head unit to play the music wirelessly. It's a simple process, but because it varies from car manufacturer to car manufacturer, it's best to check YouTube videos as the pairing procedure will differ. And then your car dealer is another good option that can help in this regard. And then if you don't have Bluetooth, then many cars still have the audio jack. You typically use that with wired headphones, but it can also be used with cars that have this type of connection. And then there's still, and I'm going to show you the newer version of an FM transmitter that by plugging it into the DC power slot allows music to play from your device to an unused FM radio station on the car's radio. So let's watch a couple of videos that explain this in a little bit more of a visual way. Okay, we're back in the car, and this time it's going to be a demonstration of how the Bluetooth works when your phone is paired with the head unit in the car. And I've already done that with this phone. And this particular system is called Sync 3, actually allows for the pairing of several phones. So you could have your spouse's phone, you could have your kid's phone, and depending who wants to play the music on a particular drive, we can easily change to whose phone is going to be paired. So now in this case, I have brought up on my Musical.ly app the song by John Carpino called Get This Thing Right, and it's from the Evolution LP, and I'm going to use the button on the screen here to play it. Let me turn up the volume a little bit. I'm all by myself. So it's coming out, and that's nice, sounding good. But now, imagine I'm driving. I don't want to actually take my hands off the steering wheel. So I can just go to the controls on the steering wheel, and I can change the volume this way, either up or down. And likewise, if I want to go to the next track, it's just click on the seek button, and there's the next track. So again, safe driving. My hands really aren't coming off the steering wheel, and yet I'm controlling what I want to hear out of the car's speakers via Bluetooth from my phone. All right, so now let's say we don't want to go through the hassle of our own saved music. We want to use a streaming service. Well, with the streaming services, they provide, as we've talked about, two choices: the free service with ads or the pay-as-you-go, typically $10 a month. And the leaders in this field are Spotify, YouTube Music, Apple Music, and Amazon Prime. Okay, so I think I've talked, well, maybe I haven't. The Amazon Prime, yes, I did. In the earlier one, I've told you about how they've changed their service recently. So music in the car, this is how you would use a streaming service. All right, we're going to now use a streaming service. So I have Amazon Prime on my phone. Amazon Prime is free. Temporarily, I've also started a trial version of Amazon Music Unlimited, and that gives you many, many more song choices. So I'm going to tap on my Amazon Music on the phone. Comes up and it looks for the search history. I have John Carpino's name in already, so I'm going to keep it there and tap on that. And on the phone now it's coming up with several results, and it has John Carpino as the artist. So I'll tap him, his name, and then it's showing the different albums that he has. Some of these I own, but some of them I don't. So if I go to this one here as an example and tap on it, it's going to show me all the different songs he's done. And I'm going to play the first one. I just tap on it. And now, even though it's playing on my phone through Bluetooth, it's coming out through the car speakers. And just like we did before, I can control the volume on the steering wheel. And I can also go to the next track on the phone, the next track on the phone, or come back. So again, all the things that you'd like to do and hear the music from your phone when it's connected via Bluetooth and you have a streaming service, you can hear all the different songs coming out of the head unit in your car. Okay, now we're in a car that does not have Bluetooth, but we still want to be able to utilize our cell phone as an example with the music we have on it to play in the car. So in this case, I use a wired connection. So normally most phones have a speaker jack. Instead of using the plug for headphones, I'm using it to connect it to the auxiliary input jack in this particular car. And I have a little holder here, and I'll talk about that in a second, that puts the phone right within easy reach of my hand as I'm driving. So I have it all connected, and I have my music Olay system set up. I want to hear a particular song, Hey Memphis by John Carpino. I just press the play button. And now again, it's coming out of the car speakers. Control it with the volume control here like I normally would. But I have all my music with me on my phone connected to the car, even without Bluetooth. Now what I've done is also I use this little bit of a holder here, and I'll just take this off for a second. This just clips right into, just hangs right on the CD insert spot. So that way, but it won't move, and I like it because it's within easy reach. Some cars have more vents, and you can use clips like that too, but for this particular vehicle, I think this worked out the best. Put this back, lock it in a little bit. Now, how about if you have an older car that doesn't have these modern audio features? What do we do then? Well, there's such a thing as a cassette adapter. I'm going to show you an example of what that looks like. There's Bluetooth FM transmitters. These plug into the DC power socket, and they'll give you hands-free phone calls and music playing through your car speakers. And using Bluetooth or attaching the audio jack between the speaker jack of FM transmitter and the device that'll be playing your music, in other words, from your cell phone. The FM transmitters often accept USB and or SD cards. And here's the way it works. You configure the FM transmitter to send the audio sound to a not in use FM radio station, and then listen to your music on that station on your car's FM radio. Okay, folks, now we're going to move on to a vehicle that is so old. This is my 20-year-old motorhome, that the fancy entertainment system consists of an AM/FM radio and a cassette player. Then what do? Well, you can get what's called a cassette adapter. Now, the cassette adapter costs under $10 at Walmart, and this one is a wired cassette adapter. And I just recently learned that on Amazon you can buy a Bluetooth cassette adapter that will come without the wire, and it'll connect via Bluetooth your phone and the cassette, so whenever you're playing it And I'm going to give you an example of how that works now. So I'm going to take the cassette adapter and put it into just like I normally would. Yeah, the wire is sticking out, but that's no big deal. And the other end of the wire is connected to the speaker jack on my smartphone, where I have the song ready to play. And I'm going to press the play button, turn up the volume a little bit. And this is my friend John Carpino, who's given me permission to play all of his music for these instructional videos. And it's close enough to me while I'm driving. If I want to hear to the next song, I could just tap on the button that goes forward to the next selection, and there it is. So, and again, but the volume is all controlled on what I normally would if I was playing a tape. So that's one way of dealing with an older vehicle if it has a cassette player and all your music though is stored on some kind of device like a smartphone. All right, the next item and type of device I'm going to talk about is called an FM transmitter. Now, these have been around for a long time. I had one probably close to 30 years ago. They were analog in those days, and they really didn't hold the station very good. What does an FM transmitter do? It takes the signal that you're sending to it to an unused FM radio station. So we know on the FM dial, there's lots of stations that are not broadcast on, depending where you are. You can then direct the signal to go to that station and hear it through your FM radio. So this particular device I liked. It has the ability for me to play a flash drive with music on it. So all I have to do is plug it in, and when it's connected to the DC power, it'll play. And it also, this is a neat one because it has a SD card. So I can actually put all of my music on a SD card like this and have it plugged in, and it'll play. The problem with this one is when I have it plugged in over here, it's in my gear shifter is in the way. So for this particular vehicle, this isn't working that well. All right, so what did I do? I went out and I got a second FM transmitter, one a little bit more flat that fits in nicely to the DC power slot on the dash here. You can see I already have it tuned to 93.1. That's the FM station, and on my radio here, I also have it at 93.1. So now when I play a song on my phone that's connected via Bluetooth, it'll come out through the speakers in the vehicle. So let's see if that works. I've been watching out my window. Everybody looks confused. John sounding very good. So this now is really close to me as I'm driving. If I want to go to the next song, just a matter of tapping the forward button like that, and it brings up the next song. And I can see on the phone, it's called It's About a Love. And this particular app I'm using actually gives me the lyrics. So, but I should be watching the road, not the lyrics as I'm driving. So that's how an FM transmitter works. You pair your phone with the transmitter, and whatever unused station in your area is not being used for a regular FM signal, you're able to play your device through that. All right, here we go with the final aspect. I've taken my FM transmitter, and this time I've saved all of the songs I have by John Carpino on a flash drive. And I've plugged the flash drive into the center button here. The other two actually are for if you want to charge something. Let's say you want to charge your phones or something else, you can plug in here. But the middle one will now actually read the information that's on that flash drive. And what's on that flash drive is the MP3 files of John Carpino's songs. So I have it set up again. I just have to press the play button here. And it's now, you can see there's no phone here. It's now playing the songs that are on this flash drive through the FM radio on the 93.1 station.
brothers and sisters. Take a look around you, man. Take a look around you, mister. Two men are walking around with a hole in their heart.
So even with an old vehicle, a 20-year-old vehicle that only has a cassette player, you can see there's several ways that you can take today's technology, as long as you have your music saved as MP3 files on some kind of device, and play them in your car effortlessly as you're driving along, and you can be on the road again. Thank you very much. All right. Other options to consider. Android Auto. That's a mobile app that allows features from your Android phone to appear on a car's compatible entertainment head unit and be voice operated. Now, this is a somewhat new technology. It really only works on car models from about 2017 on. Then there's Apple CarPlay. And again, software runs from a connected iPhone to provide a variety of audio features, very similar to Android Auto. That's again on only later car models, about 2016 and later. Now, as you can imagine, there will be differences between the different automakers and even models as to how these work. The good news is YouTube has numerous videos related to the specific cars that will guide you through the necessary steps. Now, to utilize the benefits of Android Auto requires having your Android phone physically plugged into the car's USB connector. The cable is noticeable. There are several wireless adapters now available, but they're pretty expensive. And I'm going to wait until they come down in price before I rush out and get one. Now, if your vehicle does not have a factory installed navigation app, then Android Auto is a really smart way to have your route appear on the larger infotainment screen in the car. So Apple CarPlay is similar in function to Android Auto, except that it's made to work with iPhones. And all the Apple apps, including Maps, music, text messages, and talking on the phone without holding the device, will work. Apple continues to add more benefits to CarPlay. A recent feature, and this one I thought was really great, a recent feature is called Car Keys. And that allows you to leave your keys at home, since you'll be able to unlock and start your car with your iPhone using NFC, near field communications tap technology. So the Car Keys allows you to digitally share, but not physically, your keys with another Apple phone user if you so choose. Now, because smartphones are connected to the internet, Apple CarPlay and Android feature up-to-date map and traffic data. By comparison, the built-in systems often require subscriptions or expensive software updates to get similar real-time data. So a big benefit of using Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. In addition to the accurate and updated mapping, apps such as Waze provide real-time rerouting, road alerts, local shopping and commerce, area speed limit notifications, and alerts when your vehicle is exceeding the miles per hour posted. And there's something even newer coming out. It's now factory installed. So it's relatively new, and in contrast to Android Auto, Android Automotive is the full operating system installed at the factory, running the vehicle's infotainment system and not relying on a smartphone for its operation. So messaging, phone, navigation, music playback, as well as vehicle-specific functions such as controlling air conditioning, they're all part of your operating system. Similar situation with Apple CarPlay, where the operating system can be ordered as a new car option. So when you're ready to buy a new car, be sure to see if the model you are interested in has such availability. And last but not least, you're going to hear the terms high-res audio and should you care. So streaming services like Tidal and more recently Amazon Music HD are touting their ability to stream music to smartphones and most digital hi-fi components as high-resolution audio. Simply put, these are music files that have a higher sampling frequencies and or bit depth than a compact disc. That's very high to begin with. So the positive, it's a higher quality sound reproduction The negative, it really requires high-end speakers to receive the full benefit of a very large file size. Bottom line, I think what kind of music do you listen to? Is it soft vocals, or is it classical or rock with lots of instrumentation? And the type of speakers, are they inexpensive earbuds, or are they high quality headphones or speakers? Do what I do. Take the music listening blindfold test by picking a favorite song and having a friend play it on the same equipment, alternatively from the original CD and then from the MP3 computer file. If you can correctly tell the difference, high-res audio may be a worthwhile investment for you. If you are like me and are unable to notice a difference, you've just saved a bunch of money. So let's face it, music formats will continue to change. One certainty with technology, it's always evolving. Either you evolve with it or you get left behind. I like to be in the best of both worlds. Here's an example. Shivers by Ed Sheeran from his more recent album called Equal. On the left-hand side, I have it showing up on the Plex app on my TV from my Plex server in my office. And on the right-hand side, I have an actual vinyl of that same album, both worlds. So I wanted to mention just really quick at the end here, YouTube has this very strict policy about songs played in videos where you must have permission to do so. If it's violated, they give you a strike. 3 strikes, you're out. Since I know many user groups upload the presentations, such as this one, to their channel, I wanted to make sure this could be accomplished without a copyright issue. So my playing John Carpino songs with his permission allows this tutorial to be uploaded without a copyright strike. You would be doing me a personal favor if you at some point went to his website, johncarpino.com, scroll to the bottom of the page and click on send message to tell him you saw my presentation and appreciate that he has allowed his music to be used.
Liked what you heard? Then support this marvelous singer-songwriter by bringing home his music. Available on his website, johncarpino.com.
All right, that's the end. I'm going to stop sharing now and try to answer any questions that may be available.
Hello? Got somebody there. Where's my thing?
Okay, I'm going to go with Stephen first. He has his hand raised.
Yeah, that was, what a presentation. Oh my gosh. That was so complete. Thank you very much. That's recorded, right, Huey?
Yes.
I will be watching this one again. Couple of things, though. I have a pair of headphones that I just got. They were very inexpensive. They're amazing, actually. They're Bluetooth. They're sound isolating, active noise canceling. They're really very good, and they were unbelievably inexpensive for like $16. The only thing is they have a lot of bass. Now, I'm 76 years old, and like many of the people that are probably listening here, your upper frequencies are what kind of get difficult as you get older. So having some kind of equalizer, tone controller, whatever. Now, most cars, of course, have those, even if there's only 3. You know, usually they'll have like a bass, mid-range, and maybe a treble. Some have 5. But also I don't think my cell phone has an equalizer either. So what I would like to be able to do is boost the high frequencies on these wonderful headphone set. And by the way, this has microphone, has everything in a microphone as well. Very comfortable. But the other thing is, back on the old cassette days, what they had a special circuit. Oh gosh, I had it on the tip of my tongue a minute ago. You probably know what it is. That counterbalance for the lower high frequency reduction, because cassettes didn't have all that Dolby. Yeah, it was called Dolby. So what can you say about equalizers and tone controls, that kind of thing, for all of these devices?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Stephen, and I agree. Uh, I don't know of any equalizers, and there may be, I just don't know of them, that you can add to portable equipment like that. I do have an equalizer on my home unit that I can adjust. And sometimes we even have that with the more expensive televisions where they'll give you that ability built in as an app as part of it. It would not surprise me though, if there's an app somewhere that you can download to your phone or to whatever you're playing it from, that'll give you equalizer abilities. I just don't know of any.
Thanks for that. Yeah, I will look for that. I'm sure there must be one on the cell phone, which you don't need one on the headphone set if you have one on the cell phone. So I
Right,
guess-
exactly.
Okay, very good. Thanks.
Okay. Stephanie?
I'm interested in classical music, and you've been talking about songs. Can you tell me what the differences are in terms of trying to use classical music?
From what? From a streaming service or from?
I have a bunch of CDs.
Oh, okay. They should. Now, I don't collect classical, so I'm not the best person to ask on that. I never grew up, unfortunately, and matured in my musical taste. But the way that they are listed on the CD case, how is that? Is it by the composer and then the piece that they composed? Whatever way it's on the CD as a listing, that's the way you would ask for it.
Okay, so
As it was on
if the CD is all by Mozart, it would be by the things that he produced or something that were
Right,
recorded there.
Exactly, that particular, whatever he wrote and whatever title it is. Hopefully it's in
Yeah.
English.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Go ahead, Steve. You muted?
Have you done a presentation on that Plex Media player?
I did. I
Did
did. I did a brief one for Tech for Seniors. So that was only about a 10 or a 15-minute version. I am putting together for APCUG Speakers Bureau a hour-long, probably, home entertainment that will not only focus on video like we did with APCUG for with my colleagues Bill and Mike, but this will also do audio, because audio to me is just as important as video. And while we have so many movies that are available to stream, I want to be able to show the different ways to have the music we love available in the home to play as well. And so part of that will definitely be Plex, because I use my Plex server now extensively. I spend more time uploading. I've taken, here's what a Plex server is, just to make sure everyone realizes. I've taken an old Windows 10 computer that cannot run Windows 11, but it's still a very capable desktop. And I've downloaded the Plex app for free to that computer. And so now I've started taking every DVD and Blu-ray, I've converted them to computer files, and they're saved on it. So now if I want to watch a movie I own, I don't have to go looking in the direct on the where we keep them. And I mentioned this before, the movies that were on the bottom shelf never got watched. You just didn't want to have to bend all the way down to look there. So those never got watched. So now all these movies, I've copied them and they're now on my computer, and I can bring them up in a matter of seconds, just as if I was streaming it from an online service and watch the movie. Plex does that for me. More importantly, how many of you still have home movies that you took in the 90s or earlier that are on tape, some kind of small cassette tape that we used to have, high 8 and the versions like that? If they're sitting in a drawer, every day they're deteriorating. And one of the days you're going to take them out and they're not going to play. So what I've done is I took out my old video camera, and there's a way that you can convert those tapes to computer files. And now I've done all of that. They've all been saved. The biggest part was, remember how we used to have a tape? It probably would be like a 2-hour tape, but you never, at least in my case, I didn't take a 2-hour movie in one day. I would take different bits and pieces. And there more than once I found myself going from a snow scene to a beach scene. So it does take a certain amount of time now to do some video editing and put those into individual clips of where I was, the year it was, etc. And so they're now all on the Plex server. So when I want to have and show something of a movie, again, a few clicks on a remote, and I can bring that video up right away. So it's not only for home entertainment, but it's also preserving things that photos and videos that are from your personally that you've taken over the years.
When you're using the media player that's in the Plex, can you have it use VLC instead?
I'm not aware of that. I don't think so. I mean, that's built into it. When there's nothing I've seen in any of the aspects of the Plex that gives you the option to use something different. And I found the media player fine. It plays the movie, has the all the controls you would want. But what it does when you have a movie there, it goes out to the internet, usually IMDb, the Internet Movie Database, and it scrubs it, and it brings back all the information, who the actors are, who the writers are. All that information you'd normally find on a streaming service is now on your Plex media server, and it was done automatically. And did I say this before? It's free. There is a feature where you can pay for it, and my grandson has actually had this longer than I have. And what he does is he shares his home situation, what he has on his home Plex server with me. So I now have on my setup connection with his, and he most of the time has better movies than I do. So if I'm watching and I can't find something I like, I'll tune into Derek's server at his home in Mesa, far from where I live, and watch the movies on his server. So Plex is really, really terrific.
Have you been able to get it to crop to where, like when you get a movie video and it's a really wide screen one and you want to zoom it in so that it's not quite so much black space at the top and the bottom?
Are you talking about movies that you've saved on it, or the ones that you're watching for free?
The ones that I've got saved on my drives.
Yeah, I haven't run into that problem, Steve. So I haven't tried it. Usually they're the way they should be.
When you first set it up, did you have any that came through that it got completely the wrong movie with the wrong name and everything?
Wow. No, but no, I bet you that's similar to what I mentioned before about I don't know what the algorithm is, but there's a way that I'm sure they look for it. And if you have two movies that are exactly the same, you know what? I stand corrected, Steve. I did find one, but you know what? It was my mistake. I put either the wrong year or somehow the title was slightly off. So yes, that has happened twice to me. But when I went back and looked at it, it was a mistake I made, not a mistake on the Plex server. Thank you, Steve. Walter?
Hey, Ray, great presentation. I really enjoyed it. It's very comprehensive. My question is on all of my MP3s are on OneDrive, and I'm having difficulty finding a player for my Android phone that will connect to those and play them. Some of the players I've tried will maybe start to play them or show them and then drop out, even though I've still got a good connection in my home network. But I'm looking for some way to play those.
My favorite is Music.ly. It's a free app from the Play Store, and it does everything I need it to do.
Will they connect to the OneDrive on the network?
No, I have not tried it. I've only used it where it's the items that are saved on the phone itself. I've not tried it where from OneDrive.
Yeah, because I got way too many MP3s to put on my phone if I wanted to keep them all.
I don't know how many that is. I have over 100,000, and I just bought a larger SD card and had no problem.
Yeah, my phone won't take an SD card, so.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Sorry, I don't have a specific answer for that. All right.
Ray, I think that uses up all the questions and the time. I know some of these people have been here since 1 o'clock and it's after 4. And And I'm sure you're tired as well. Your voice held out, but that was a long and great presentation, very thorough. A lot of stuff I remember, a lot of things I didn't realize. So
Good.
thank you very much on behalf of CFCS and all the people who have hung in there. Thanks for a great presentation.
Thank
And
you.
this has been the Central Florida Computer Society main meeting, and we'll see you in December. Thank you very much.
So long, everyone.
Great show, Ray. Thank you.
Thank you.